All right, welcome again to Social Distillation, the submarine still of the internet, where we attempt to drop the beat and pour white lightning straight under your brain. What are we talking about today, Samuel?
We're back to our social episode, even though because of vacations we didn't have a wheel of time, but we'll get back to that. And we are going to be dark in the
Mm,
beginning here because there's been some violence in the news. And for those that aren't familiar, probably the main topic is that Minneapolis Catholic school shooting. But I've actually got a local story that's similar, but different because you wanted to talk about what's in the head of these people.
yeah, yeah. This kind of clicked to me in a weird way. I wasn't going to talk about this, even though it is surprisingly good, because other people have done videos on, wow, this is such a silly concept, and yet this movie is surprisingly good, which is why it is one of Netflix's most watched movies ever of K-pop demon hunters. And I've referenced this channel before, but Greg Owen did a video on it, and he's done a couple of good videos on why kids need good stories, good with a capital G. And it's one of the infuriating things that a lot of people have been complaining about in the kind of the culture criticism space of the nerdrotics and drinkers and those people of stop excusing crappy movies by saying, "Oh, come on, it's just a kid's story." You know, it's space wizards and lasers. It's no, it's crap stories teaching crap morals. Several of the people in that space, uh, their commentary on the D plus show Ironheart was that this is a villain origin story, and the writers don't even realize it. They think she's the hero. No, it's a villain origin story. She is a terrible human being.
Well, look
And
look
this
at
is what
the
you're teaching
look at the
kids.
internet chatter about how awesome the Joker is,
Mm,
right? It was a great movie, but how awesome the Joker as the personified version of something is.
yeah,
And it's like, no, that's not the point. He's the bad
yeah,
guy.
yeah.
It's just a story about the bad guy.
Well, the reason that in particular resonated is because he was a literally beaten down loser.
Hmm.
And that resonated with a lot of young men who have been treated like that for years.
Hmm.
Especially, we're not supposed to say this, but especially young white men, because they're doubly terrible. Because not only are they toxically masculine, but their melanin levels make them evil colonialists and racists as well.
Hmm.
And so that's why it resonated. But then there was
Well,
this
and
subset
add
of
to
those
that
people that were like,
the
yeah, he's a
undertone of
hero.
that message. Add to that the undertone of that message is, if you suck, it's your fault.
Yeah, yeah. Um, and this this clicked because I have granddaughters, and of course they're at the age where they like something, and so they watch nothing but that. Which can sometimes be good because I've turned them on to things that I like, and so we
So you're
watch that.
brainwashing them. Okay, I see how it is.
I'm teaching them. I've referenced this before, but they now love Avatar: The Last Airbender, and it has some great storytelling in it, some great messages, positive things that kids need to learn. One of which I've referenced before, which is the old wise mentor uncle character is trying to teach his nephew, who's angry because he's confused and shamed. He's obsessed with getting back his honor. And Uncle Iroh is trying to teach the young prince how to find inner peace and why he needs inner peace. And one of the things he says is that shame isn't the opposite of anger, it's its source. And that's what we're leading to. And the so the story of K-pop demon hunters, just briefly, is you have this gifted group through the generations. There are always three gifted voices, and they use song, something we've talked about. They use song to uplift people and unite people, which is what protects them against the demonic influence. which is one of the reasons you have Steven Pinker's better angels of our nature up back there,
Hmm.
because that's the opposite of that's what they're doing is appealing to the better angels. The way that Demon King seduces you is by, on the one hand, telling you, I can give you what you want. I can give you that thing that you really want. And on the other hand, you're alone. You're a loser. There's nothing. So the twin beats of what you desire and your fear. And he plays on those. And then once he has you, he
Now,
keeps you.
hold that word too for the later in this
Yes.
conversation. Fear.
And there's a major component of the storytelling is he keeps you in his clutches through shame and guilt. He plays off of your shame and guilt. He uses that to bludgeon you down and to keep you subjugated. And it's not until the climax of the movie are is the main character breaking through that idea. And and in the climactic moment, her her aunt, who was her mentor, uh was was unknowingly, accidentally on the Demon King side, even though she was supposed to be one of these K-pop demon hunters, because her niece has this secret, and no, just keep it covered up until we can make it all better. That's exactly what the evil does.
Hmm.
But because she had a strong core of goodness, when the main character, comes to this realization, she says, if this is what I've been protecting, I'm not protecting it anymore. But instead of saying, so I'm going to burn it all down, it's, I'm going to make something better.
Well, let's go down this train of thought and let's talk about cults. So you used the words shame and guilt, and they're different. Shame and guilt are two different things. Guilt is I did something wrong and I feel bad about it.
Mm-hmm.
Shame is I feel like I am a bad person, right? So there's more of a social and identity based system there versus I did bad thing and I feel bad. That's a good thing, right? If you feel bad about doing bad thing, you're less likely to do bad thing again. If you feel shame and you identify as a bad person, well, now we're talking a different thing.
Mm-hmm.
But guilt can become shame, right?
Right.
And so look at how cults work and on this train of thought, and we'll get to what makes a mass shooter or whatever. Notice these movements, these cults, as we could call them, get you to do something bad. And then you feel bad. And then they get you to invest a little more. And so you're actually investing in your own shame as you do the bad things that these, and it's little. Hey, uh, gangs. Let's use a gang, for example, street gang. Hey, go just break that window. Break the old man's window over there. Just a rock and we'll run away and oh, it's fun. Boom. First step. Okay. Hey, he fixed his window. Break it again, but I bet you his wallet's on his nightstand. Second step, right? And then ultimately, oh, old man catches you and you shoot old man. Boom, 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 boom. Keep going one step further, one step further, one step further. And now look at these. I put mostly kind of happy things up because I didn't want to talk about this, except we need to. Moral Animal, great book. Better Angels of Our Nature, which we've turned that trend around, but over history, people have just become less violent, so that's a great thing. But then I got Bad Men, but the one on top is the important one. It's Ibram Kendi, so it's more dealing with
Mm-hmm.
the race issues, but it's about ideology. And the book up there, because I don't think you can read it from that far, is stamped from the beginning. It was his first big like plunge into the media. It was the award-winning book before How to Be an Anti-Racist. And if you believe everything in that book, why wouldn't you be violent?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you be violent? If you're stamped from the beginning to be oppressed, why wouldn't you be? And it's a thick ass book. It's like this thick. And check the sources because it's bullshit. But uh, yeah, but it's no, there are some truths in there though. But this is the kernel of truth, ideology. If you believed the words in that book, why wouldn't you be violent? If you believed, let me bring one of the things Andy No, who's been reporting on this, posted. This is an advertisement. For those that are just watching, it is a looks it's a Twitter post, but
Hmm.
it's a picture and it says stop being a nice queer. Take off the kid gloves. They want you dead and you're worried about being polite. Start acting like your life is on the line because it is. Every day is Trans Day of Vengeance. If you believe your life is on the line, I am a proponent of being having the right to self-defense.
Hmm.
That's part of my inalienable right of life. I can defend myself if someone decides to take that swinging of the fist to my actual nose, right? I have that right. If I truly believed that people were out to kill me, why wouldn't I be violent? I'm
And
not condoning that. I'm just saying I know how you would feel. Here's the hard part. We got to figure out a way to say or to convince them it's not true.
exactly. And
Yeah.
that's what I was. So I got into Martha Beck. I've referenced this, and I can finally remember the name because I started reading it. Martha Beck,
It's a nice
Beyond
cover too. I
Anxiety.
like it.
Yeah.
It's a happy
Um,
cover.
and it and I mentioned this previously, but one of the stories she relates is um, uh, a psychiatrist who wrote about his experience working in a ward with severely brain damaged individuals. And this man had had severe right hemisphere damage, could not feel his left leg, and so was convinced it wasn't his leg, that as some sort of sick joke, the nurses had put a severed leg in his bed. And when he tried to throw it away, it was attached to him. So they'd sewn it to him. He picked up his own leg. He touched it. He threw it off the bed. It dragged him onto the floor with him. The psychiatrist could not get him to believe, no matter what the tangible, literal evidence was right in front of his eyes in his own hands, the psychiatrist couldn't get him to believe that's your leg. No amount of, well, whose leg is it? Where did it come from? Why would someone do something so sick as what you're saying? Nothing could get through to him because of that severe right hemisphere damage. And and as you said, and that's an extreme example, but you get there through little steps. You'll appreciate this in K-pop Demon Hunters, the way the story unfolds is the person who becomes kind of the main antagonist is this centuries old bard who had sold his soul to the Demon King for a life of luxury. But to do so, he had left his family behind. And that was his guilt because that was bad. He got to go into the palace to play for the king and to have everything he wanted. He was no longer hungry. He was no longer sleeping on the streets. His mom and his sister were. There is a scene where he's looking at them as the gates are closed in their face, and he leaves them behind. But then the beat down, the continuous 3 centuries of hammering this point in turns that guilt into shame.
Hmm.
And he comes up with this idea of here's how we battle the K-pop demon hunters. We form our own group. So he takes a group of fellow demons and forms a boy band. And their their way to fight against it's because you're a lyrics guy. The lyrics of the girl group are all about uniting and uplifting. The boy band, the demon boy band, produces this kitschy, by the numbers, vacuous pop song. And it really is, but it is incredibly catchy because it's got the beat, it's got the simple lyrics. And so it goes viral and it is an earworm that gets into your head even as you're watching it. But then you read the lyrics and it's so vacuous, but then with just little hints of darkness, of You're my everything, I'm your everything. And that leads to the climactic song for the antagonists. The song is called Your Idol. And it is idolatry. It is, I am the cult leader. They turn their fans into a mindless cult through the introduction of mindlessness, of don't think, just feel. Don't think, you know. And that ultimately leads to a cult which darn near destroys the world.
Hmm.
And, and the person who breaks through it is the one who recognizes both sides and synthesizes it into something different but good instead of something self-centered,
Hmm.
which is what the demonic nature is all about, is the self-centeredness. And let's get to where we're going. And we have a post by Andy No, and the reason I'm using him is because he literally put his life on the line to write his book Unmasked and to continue through the
Yeah,
year since he's released
yeah.
to report on Antifa.
That was almost one of them that was going to go on the shelf there, but again, I didn't want it.
So I had
I,
seen a few people post about what was believed to be this manifesto from this individual in Minneapolis. And it wasn't until No started reporting on that I said, okay, this is probably the real deal because if
mhm.
he's got enough journalistic credibility that if he posts something, you can you can believe it is almost certainly true.
Yeah, and for those that love to call him a right-wing hack, this is the gay uh, gay pride marching journalist from the
Mm-hmm.
90s that he just happens to not agree with a lot of Antifa's
Yep.
tactics and definitely what he calls the trans death cults, which are a thing now.
Yeah.
So, but
And he started, this was a component of Unmasked because, as he has said on a number of posts
well,
recently,
again, that's why I put Stan from the beginning because all of
yeah,
these things are connected.
exactly. So
They're using
he
the
started
same
reporting
tactics
on this.
anyways.
He started noticing this, and this was part of Unmasked, but it's become a bigger part of his reporting now because it has become such a cultural contagion.
Well, and I think he took it kind of personally when he got whacked over the face and spent
Yep.
months in a hospital because they beat the ever living crap out of him. But
Yep. Yep. And so here's a post from August 28th, which again, gay lefty, and yet he's on Newsmax, which is a conservative
yeah, that would be a
news
conservative
source.
outlet. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because hey, we have common cause here, guys. Um, and this, I saw this before I left for the weekend, and this popped into my head when I was, listening to the demons and the Demon King try and seduce people, and I was like, holy crap, that's that is what is was in this person's head. Is I am suffering, so I'm going to make other people suffer now too. And what No posted here, and he's got a 90-second clip from this Newsmax. He's also in the comments. He posts the full interview, but he said the part of the Minneapolis trans mass shooters manifesto I find most revealing is where he discusses his agony and regret at learning there is no magic wand, technology, or surgery that can make him a real girl. And he turned that pain into nihilism and rage.
Hmm. Oof. See, this is the part where it gets very nuanced because you want to say just the sheer evil.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll bring up the story here. Here's the Fox story. I just clicked on the first one that came up on Google, so that wasn't trying to get a Fox story.
Mm-hmm.
But Minneapolis Catholic school shooter's life marked by chaos before mass killing timeline is the story. Robin Westman, Robin being his female name, his okay, his feminine name, we'll say,
Hmm.
killed two children and injured 18 others before taking his own life. So, I mean, there's everything you need to know in that second half of that before taking his own life.
Yeah.
And that's where it's nihilism and not uh, self-centered violence. I'll use those words. Now, it is still self-centered because he's only acting on the impulses of himself,
Hmm.
but it wasn't I want to kill people. It was I am hurting, and now I have this outlook on the world that nothing matters. I'm actually I would love I didn't get to read the whole manifesto or hear all about it, but I would love to see if he thought he was helping people by
Hmm.
killing them because some of these killers do.
That was I was talking this over with my wife, trying to think it through over the weekend and telling her what I intended to talk about today. And that was her point because my point was what in the world? I mean, obviously you don't want to condone it, you don't want to encourage it, but you can understand when someone gets to a place where they feel like there is no other option but to take their own life.
Well, let's
It's
define
understandable.
yeah, let's define psychological disorder to open this up kind of. I've got the brandest newest version of this, the DSM-5 TR, just purchased a few days ago. It is the most up-to-date one, even though there are already amendments you can get online. But there are three criteria to actually having a psychological disorder versus just having some traits that put you on a spectrum of something, right?
Hmm.
The three traits are the person shows, or the three, the all three, two, I think it's two of the three have to be true, but it might be all three. I have to have a note on that. Hold on. Yeah, so it has to be more than one. Okay, so the person shows distress. Okay, this is that one's so that's why it's not all three because think of a pattern of things like narcissism. They don't show distress. They're pretty happy with themselves, especially the grandiose narcissist. So that's why it doesn't have to be all three. That was just an easy example. But the person shows distress. The pattern is associated with some degree of disability or impairment that substantially limits one or more important domains of life functioning. And third, the distress and or disability increase the risk of further suffering or harm, such as death, pain, disability, or an important loss of freedom, like being incarcerated or hospitalization. So you have to meet all three of those. I think this person met all three of those. And further reporting by Andy No that was way up on the timeline, so I'm not going to scroll through for everybody, but apparently mom was in hiding because she didn't agree with what was going on and she was forced to do it by her peers and her, I guess, ex-husband. Dad was the
Yeah,
one
that's what it
that,
looks like.
yeah, dad was the
Is
one that's
ex-husband.
fully supported all the
Ex are
stuff and
separated. Yes, it's not clear, but he made a post a couple of days ago, something to the effect of the internet mob owes the mother an apology. Because she
eh,
was badgered into it in much as we've referenced Elon Musk's interview with Jordan Peterson, and he talks about this because this happened to his own son. Is you are told by so-called experts that if you do not do
mhm.
this, you are killing your child.
Yeah, and it's not just the internet. The chances are, if we dig deep into this, the kid was probably seeing a counselor, right?
Mm-hmm.
At school and maybe privately. And
And
this
Minnesota is
person
one of those
was,
places where you are not only not required, but I think Minnesota may be one of those places where if you don't give gender affirming care, your child can be taken away from you.
hmm
So
yeah.
this is the force of the state as well.
Yeah, and I was digging into something because I got an email for my son's uh, from my son's school. It was because of Texas Senate Bill 12, you need to sign this release if they get counseling at school. And I'm like, wait a minute. Are you going to tell me what counseling it is before I sign the
Yeah,
release?
yeah.
Because, yeah, the bill makes me have to sign this for you to give the counseling, but at the same time, counseling for what? Because I looked at what wasn't covered there. General school counseling, uh, they're sick, they go to the nurse's office, that kind of thing. That's all already just you can do it. What's specifically under this bill is gender affirming care, uh, mental illness type stuff, mental disorder type stuff. And I'm like, wait a minute. If I sign this, I was reading through part of it. I'm like, if I sign this, then you can do whatever you want with them without telling me, even though they're a minor.
Hmm.
No, I don't agree to that.
Hmm.
I don't agree to that.
So
Unless
here's,
I'm going to go out there and just be like, "Hey, son, I'm signing this. Tell me what they tell you. You can tell me anything you want."
yeah. So I scrolled up a little bit and I found the post from August 31st from Andy No. And this is he reports this. There's a full story on his Substack about this, but the X post is exclusive. Secrets inside the Westman family. A source tells me it was the father, not Mary Grace, the mother, who strongly affirmed the Minneapolis shooter's transition. The mother, a devout Christian, was pressured by everyone around her to sign the court doc. So I don't I suspect then this wasn't a you're better off dead. It's I'm mad at you. I'm taking you with me, much like the Nashville shooter's own manifesto and reasoning for
hmm
why she went into a Christian school to kill Christian kids.
Oh no, I was just throwing out the most generous
Yes.
mental state that I could think of,
Which you
which,
often see, which my wife mentioned a couple of terrible stories of mothers who do that, murder suicide, and they kill their own children because, well, otherwise they'll be all alone because I'm not
what
going to be here to take care of them.
what was the lady who drowned her children?
Yeah, I think that was here in Texas.
Yeah, that was here in Texas. She drowned her children in the bathtub, and it was the typical pattern with that is husband leaves while children are still small.
Mm.
So these children are going to suffer because I am alone and I can't provide for them anyways. So they kill them just like a chimp would kill her young if the new alpha male took over. And it's a pattern that goes across all primates. And it's like, whoa, that's evil, but it's completely justified in their head.
In their head. Yeah,
hmm
yeah. Um, I, I don't know how.
In the case of the chimp, they're correct. In the case of modern Western humans, no.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So this is so back to Martha Beck for a minute. She doesn't use these words, at least not yet. I'm not very far into the book. I'm only a few chapters in, but basically what she's saying is this right hemisphere atrophy that we've got going on culturally is where the idea of my truth came from.
hmm
Because it is the truth as far as you're concerned. Now, is it
Well, and
objective reality?
this
No,
is
but you
actually
can't tell that.
that's fantastic right there because I wasn't thinking this way till you brought it up, till you brought her into the conversation. Anxiety is a great, 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 great thought pattern to go down here because right left hemisphere, well, remember the right hemisphere is more about inputs and the left hemisphere is more about making sense of those inputs, right? If we kind of take that model, that oversimplified version of that model,
Mhm.
well, anxiety has zero inputs because it's an unknown future. You are modeling the future. You are making decisions about what might happen. So there is no input model
Exactly.
for that. So if you go back to Texas mother that drowned her two children, she modeled a future where her children are starving because she lost her means of resource because she quit her job to have the children with the husband that left her, right? You know, I think that was the case. Don't quote me on it, but I think that was the case.
Hmm.
And so now she's thinking of these children dying a slow, horrible death and being, and so she modeled a future. which is completely left hemisphere because there's no input because they're not starving now. They're not dying. They're not ostracized by their community. I said that word without a hiccup. That's the hardest word to say right there. Ostracized. Uh, I've been practicing though. Uh, but that's just her projection of that on the future, which
Yeah.
is complete left brain thinking. So we have to be sensitive to our inputs because we have to take in the here and now. Okay, so now let's go back to this Catholic school shooter. He was devastated because there was no magic wand for the thing he thought he wanted.
Hmm.
So he projected a future that was horrible, horrible for everybody. Oh my gosh, this is the worst place to live. That's the definition of nihilist, is what is the point of even being alive because it's horrible. Uh, that's the staring into the abyss, right? Just and the abyss stares back. You're projecting a future that doesn't involve you. That's why he killed himself.
So this is from the introduction here, and this is the bit that I took a picture and sent you, and I really like the way this sums up kind of what her point is, why she wrote a book on anxiety. And she talks about how she had to deal with it from the age of 5. She says she had her first panic attack when she was 5 years old. So obviously there's something genetically wrong there because that shouldn't happen. But
Yeah, I brought up a lot of resources on the role of genes and
mhm,
environment as well. So, because that's probably something we need to kind of dive into from the internal state type. Yeah.
yeah. So this is what she calls the anxiety spiral, which for anyone who's had a full-blown panic attack knows this for sure,
Especially
or
if
even
there's a health model
close.
on this. So this is not to get anybody worried because I'm doing good, but uh so it could be physiological or could be psychological, the trigger, but once they both start going,
Yes.
you get a positive feedback loop. Positive not being good. Positive means one builds the other. When I have a flutter, my brain goes, "Oh my gosh, I'm having a flutter," which causes anxiety, which causes the flutter to get worse, which is like, am I just having a panic attack or am I having a heart attack right now? And it doesn't happen very
Yeah.
often, but when it does, it just goes and just
Well,
spirals out of control until like,
the the part the section after the bit that I'm going to read talks a bit about that because it is, as society makes us more anxious, we make it more anxious because we all, I've said before, some of us are way better at it than others, but we all have the ability to read social cues and nonverbals. And so if somebody around you is anxious, it will automatically, reflexively, consciously or subconsciously make you anxious because your brain is going, wait, what? What's going on? What?
hold on, hold on. I
It's the
have I
rubbernecking.
have that right here. The environment correlation, active versus evocative. You're evoking, right? You're evoking.
Mhm.
So your behavior determines how people treat you, which determines your behavior, which determines how people treat you. Yeah.
Yep.
So there's a, oh shoot, source that. Hold on. That is for those just listening. I'm gonna butcher this name, but it looks French. Beauchesne
Well,
et
yeah,
al.
well,
Yeah.
the radical paper there, man. All right.
2022.
Um,
Yeah,
the
there you go.
anxiety spiral. So let me quote here from Martha Beck because I like the way she phrases this. The anxiety spiral works like one of those tire rippers you may have driven over while leaving a parking lot. It allows the brain to go forward into higher anxiety, but not to drop back into relaxation. All animals have fear responses when they're in danger. But because of our fancy powers of speech and imagination, we humans can keep that fear response elevated indefinitely,
Which is
whether
left
we're in
brain.
danger or not.
Yep.
In fact, the more left brain dominant our society becomes, the more we as individuals receive messages to keep our angst spiraling up and up and up and up into ever higher levels of anxiety.
Hmm.
And one of the things she talks about is, and why she started taking a different approach to treating anxiety. And one of the things she does is she brings people out into group therapy and they go out into nature because nature is inherently chaotic. and unpredictable, and thus it forces your right brain to wake up and work, you know, genetically
Hmm.
on an evolutionary psych level. It says, hey, what right
Well,
brain, wake
this
up.
is
We've got to evaluate what's going on here.
this is a concern of mine when I go back to my hometown because there's woods, right? And I have a son who did not grow up like I did. In fact, he's not very aware of his surroundings half the time, which is also concerning me because he's learning how to drive right now. But, so we're having lessons on, please, this is how you pay attention to the world, inputs. It's not the same as a computer screen, okay? But copperhead snakes, very common where I grew up, and I almost have like a spidey sense for them. And that's why I've killed quite a few and never been bit. And I don't even think I've had a close call with it. But if you look, and again, it's different on a computer screen than in real life, but if you look at those pictures that says find the snake, and it's a copperhead snake in the middle of oak leaves, you don't find the snake very often. And on the
Mm-hmm.
computer screen, it's even hard for me to find it. But someone who has a heightened sense of inputs will see that because there's going to be a slight movement, or you're going to see a serpentine pattern versus a rigid pattern that would be a stick. You know, there's going to be sometimes even a smell that goes with it, and you may not be conscious of the smell, but all of a sudden you get more aware of your surroundings. That's your brain telling you that there's danger around. And if you are completely locked out of that because you've never been with it, so nature, that's a very extreme version because you don't want to get bit by that snake, but just seeing leaves. Robert Wright talks about this and why Buddhism is true. One of the benefits of his meditation with retreats was he started seeing light patterns on bark. And he was like, wow, that's fantastic. This is more beautiful than it's ever been because he's more receptive to it. Because his default mode network is turned off to some degree, not completely, we can't, but not completely, but it's not overpowering his brain to inputs from the world around him. And default mode network, for those that don't know, is your own brain giving you inputs, which is the ruminating thoughts, is a great example of that in depression. The ruminating thoughts is your own brain giving you inputs, whereas you have to down regulate that a little bit to get inputs from the outside because we can only perceive so many things at once. Have you ever been listening to something like a podcast or a audio book or something, and your brain just wanders for a second, and you're like, "Oh shit, I missed that whole last 5 minutes."
That's why I can't listen to audiobooks.
Yeah, that's how it is because even your own internal thoughts take cognitive uh, resource, and you only got so much. They've kind of narrowed down measuring it at best 40 bytes per second. And that's 3 times the normal going rate. So at best. And normally we're getting 16 million every second. So what are you paying attention to? Are you paying attention to your nihilistic thoughts? Or are you paying attention to the world around you?
And are you being helped, or is the quote unquote help you're getting actually making it worse? And I don't even mean specifically when it comes to gender affirming care, which I've said before, you're just making it worse, but just the techniques. This is something Beck points out is the techniques we use in psychiatry and psychology are very left brain dominant. They are very much, let's make a
Control.
list.
About
Let,
control. Yeah.
yeah, let's list what is wrong. Now let's make a to-do list. Now let's do the things. And that is all very regimented left brain thinking. That is why she said, let's try a different model. Let's try a different approach. Let's try
Hmm.
whole brain health. I can't remember she has a friend who was a PhD, a biologist researcher of some sort who suffered a severe stroke. And it, because she was a scientist, she was able to, once she recovered the ability to speak, talk and write about what it was like to be right hemisphere dominant, because she had to be, because her left hemisphere went with a massive stroke. And she wrote a book. Uh,
That's a
I believe the
big
title was
stroke to
Whole
take
Brain
out
Health.
the full
It was it was
hemisphere.
severe enough that it was one of those you have
She
to
wouldn't even
relearn
be
to.
able to talk.
Yep, she was not
Yeah.
able to talk, but she said she was euphoric. She was trapped inside her own head, but she experienced bliss because she didn't have that list making side that was listing all the possible. She was always in the moment.
Yeah, but let's get to the positive side of that using my snake example. I've also experienced enough time romping through the woods that I know things that are more likely culprits of hiding that snake.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this kind of leaf versus this kind of leaf. The weather is this way. It's this temperature. It's versus this temperature. It's slightly wet. It's not slightly wet. Cicadas are out, which for those that know copperheads, the babies eat cicadas, which is a giant bug that is very annoying and loud. But so all of these things are less left hemisphere thinking because I've already determined a pattern, and that's survival too. So if I'm in the African Sahara and there's tall grass and it rustles, it could be the wind or it could be a lion. But it's in my benefit to assume it's the lion. So there is benefit to left hemisphere thinking or it wouldn't exist.
Yes.
Bright red in a fruit. We have apples, which we can eat, but there's also so many bright red berries that will kill you, right? So we had to determine, okay, don't just eat anything bright red. Poison dart frogs are covered in colors. Well, there's other frogs that aren't poisonous that are covered in colors because they know we, as predators, decided we're not going to eat that thing that kills me. So, there is benefit to left. It shortcuts our world. We need it. But the problem is the side effect of that is basically we're the animal version of control freaks. Because the more you can control, the more that kind of thinking dominates. I have my air conditioner. I have walls around me. I have this computer in front of me. That's all human control. Now, are we going to self-regulate? Because eventually we're going to shift so far that we're going to lose. I don't think so. Not for a while because I just brought up Ben and my son driving. We're getting the self-driving cars,
Mm.
more control. I mean, how long till we're freaking in the fifth element, where you just hit the button and your car flies you where you want to go? I don't know. I don't know where we're at.
Which is the concern, and
Hmm.
why um
Because Copperhead still exist.
exactly,
Yeah.
and why Beck, wrote this book and does her treatments the way she does, is we are becoming, as you say, the problem isn't the left hemisphere. The problem is how we weight it so significantly to the detriment of our right hemisphere and our whole brain thinking
Mhm.
and living, in much the same way that we've talked about neurosis. Being neurotic is not inherently bad. It's, as Beck puts it, the anxiety spiral. It's when you give into, it's when you focus on and you let that suck you into this spiral where everything is terrible. There's a copperhead under every single leaf. No, no, there's not. That's physically impossible. But you lean into your neurosis too much, and that's where it takes you.
Well, and you got to differentiate between chronic and acute stress too.
Yes.
That's what she's talking about with the you can't back up. Acute stress is I did see the snake and I jumped.
Hmm.
Okay, I jumped back. I am now out of danger, and guess what? Your body regulates pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But if you're constantly searching for snakes everywhere you go, no matter what, you're gonna go down a bad health spiral very, very, very quickly. All right, so to kind of get back to what we were talking about with the shooter, right? So all of these dwelling thoughts become chronic stressors that push you in a direction, and obviously, what is genetic? What is environment? What is your social, your culture, everything? You said it, the way therapy is, right? Your extended phenotype. How it actually anybody who's got any kind of a biological background should say affirmative care is the definition of extended phenotype
Hmm.
of that evocative genetic component because all affirmative care is telling your therapist how to treat you, right?
Hmm.
I am this. I'm depressed. Oh, you're depressed? Here's your med. Oh, I'm a girl, even though I've got an Adam's apple and beans and franks, right? So it's that's exactly the extended phenotype. The beaver builds the dam, so a lake forms, right? Only the lake is mental health issues. You're basically telling the therapist to just build the giant body of mental health issues with affirmative care. And that gets me thinking about things like social emotional learning and things like that because as with that pamphlet, why wouldn't you act this way if you thought you were going to die? If you really believed that advertisement that the world wants you dead, why would you not act the way in this shooter? Now, different case we had here locally, it's more baffling because where is the social part? Where is the environmental factors? What is genetic? And they all interplay. But this guy, here we go. This is a local news outlet. The Fox 26. I also have a KHOU, which I think is CBS. Shooting victim and dead teen's father to live powerful statements after gunman pleads guilty. The other story is Connor Hilton pleads guilty to fatally shooting friend, injuring another. The brief synopsis here: a Friendswood man. They call. Oh, I mean, he's technically a man now. He's 21, but he was 18 at the time of the shooting. Connor Lynn Hilton pled guilty to murder and aggravated assault. Hilton, 21, accepted a 50-year sentence for 2023 fatal shooting of his friend. The plea came after a judge denied a defense that blamed actions on acne medication, which well, we've been through my thoughts on dermatologists and how they are dumb. But so he was 17, not 18. He was 17 when he fatally shot a friend and injured another, and he pled guilty to the crimes. He pled guilty walking out the door. And his reason for shooting his friends, because he shot two of them and one of them was hiding in the bathroom at the time, well, was going to the bathroom and heard the shots and was hiding in the bathroom, uh, because he wanted to feel like what it was like to kill somebody. He was curious what it felt like to kill somebody. Now, this is more baffling to me than what we're dealing with a lot of these local shooting sprees that are going up because where does this come from? Obviously, there's some antisocial personality disorder because he didn't care about their feelings. He didn't care about how he hurt them. Now, his reason for taking the guilty plea that the lawyers gave was that he didn't want the family to have to go through the trial. So, is that legit or was that him feigning empathy?
Hmm.
Where is this coming from? This is more baffling to me because this is the thing that worries me because you're those two friends. There's no warning. There was no sign. There was no, oh, we had all of these signs leading up to this. It was just your friend that decided he wanted to see what it was like. That's more baffling to me.
I think that just has more to do with the my truth is you are living in your own little reality, this little bubble that you've created, and the real world doesn't matter.
Hmm.
If you were forced to live in and acknowledge the real world, then you would be forced to acknowledge you're not the only one schlepping this sphere. There are other people here.
But if it was complete nihilism, which that sounds like it, I just wanted to know what it was like to kill somebody. Why didn't he take himself?
Yeah.
Apparently, the friend in the bathroom heard him say, "What did I do? What did I do? What did I do?" But again, what drives somebody to make that decision in
Hmm.
that moment? Impulse control. Maybe he does have some lesions in his brain. How much of it was being raised? How much of it was okay? So Peterson talks about this a lot, but it is an important point. Uh, when you're very, very, very young, you're the only person that matters in your brain.
Hmm.
So when we have the debate on narcissism, we have the classical, Freudian take, which he had a good this is one of the places he did really contribute a lot is there's primary and secondary narcissism. Primary is the same thing we all grow up with because at some point, every child is a narcissist because the only important thing is them, and then they socialize into normal human beings if everything goes right. Did he just not get past that? That only I matter, what I want matters? I want to feel this thing. Oh, it felt bad. Now I'm remorseful. Is that where we are? Because
Mm.
that's what it looks like on the surface. But it's such an extreme version of that. How bad does the environment have to be for just common sense, the prefrontal cortex, how atrophied did that have to be along the way to say
Right.
only what I want to feel matters to the extent I kill somebody? And the other person is like, I think he was shot in the head. He's very dysfunctional right now. He was able
Mm.
to give a speech on the stand, but at the same time, definitely not right now.
Wow. Well, this actually leads me into what I want. I'm going to talk about myself for a little bit as an example and hopefully give some positive
You don't
mental
have
health
you don't have any
discussions here.
implements of torture or weapons beyond my druid staff or anything on you
Well,
that
I
I have to
have
worry about.
a device to try and push some curve back into my cervical spine. It feels torturous, that's for sure. Um, but that's actually part of the what's connected here because you brought up the psychological and the physical connection earlier.
Mhm.
So I
Biopsychosocial model is what's going now, and I approve of this
mm,
because it is a great blending. I don't see a whole lot of differentiation between the original psychosocial model, which was Eric Erickson, but there is a little bit more of a social element to it. Yeah.
so I'm trying not to go off on too many tangents here, but I had a number of thoughts as I was reading these first couple of chapters of Beyond Anxiety, and one of the things that popped into my head um, when she was talking about how we are becoming more and more left hemisphere dominant as a culture, and even the way we treat mental effects is very left hemisphere. And something that popped into my head is in the early 2000s when the rise in autism was becoming, mainstream. Uh, I had a friend that we would laugh it off because we pointed out that, well, yeah, but um, if we were kids in school today, they'd call us autistic.
Yeah,
Yeah, because we are.
I would have been ADHD probably, but
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
yeah, we are, which is why it's a spectrum. We are definitely, me and this friend are definitely on the autism spectrum. Now, how severe is it? Was it? You know, but that was my other thought is, much like as I've said before, we had Looney Tunes and violent cartoons and violent video games, but we also had balance We also had healthy outlets. We also had, you know, good, if not parents, at least parental figures to guide us.
Yeah, this brings me into the kind of blending the what you were talking, going into your own story with what I just talked about with this. Was there the lack of that outlet
Mhm,
that, we look at the rough housing with the parents and how beneficial that is for the child because, oh, they actually experience just a little bit of pain in a controlled environment and they realize, oh, that hurts other people too because it hurt me. Was it just devoid of that? Was that the lack of that experience in our bubble wrapped nature of raising our children? Is that going to lead to more events like this?
mhm.
Is the affirmative care is bubble wrapping, right? It's saying what they want to hear so you don't hurt their feelings. It's the whole basis of social emotional learning. How do you feel? Oh, do you need a break? Oh, let's go ahead and talk about that feeling. The biggest cause of violence is fear. It's not anger, it's fear. Jealousy is fear of being left or of losing. It's not anger. The biggest cause of violence is fear because fear is something that you should react to.
It, it makes me wonder how, you know, Dave Rubin has talked quite a bit about how, boy, he's glad he's the age he is because if he was a young, confused about his sexuality man today, would he have been told, oh, well, that's because you're born in the wrong gender?
Yeah, that's why a lot of LGB doesn't want LGBTQAI plus because
Mhm.
they're like, wait a minute, you're actually making us illegitimate by saying this is a construct. No, I am a guy that likes guys,
Yep.
or I am a girl that likes girls, or I am a individual that likes both. We're LGB, y'all are everything else.
And I wonder how much of the rise, not just of autism, but of more severe autistic cases are because, oh, well, you're autistic, so that means this is what you're like. Well, this is what your propensity is. This is what you lean to. That
So
doesn't
you're
mean
saying like a self-fulfilling prophecy type.
exactly.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you can't live a pretty normal life. If you have outlets, if you have experiences and opportunities for that whole brain health, as Beck talks about. So personally, I've started going back to school, and I'm glad I decided, you know what, it's been over 20 years since I've been in a classroom. Let's not jump right into law school. Let's start the paralegal program at the local community college and do that as prep, but also to see, do I really want to go to law school? Um, because it has been a pretty severe as far as spiking my anxiety. And on top of that,
Welcome back, brother.
yeah,
You've
the
seen the stress I've had
difficulty,
because I can't stand to not make an A plus.
mhm,
Yeah.
the difficulty in managing my physical pain on top of that, and then that creates that feedback loop. They feed off of each other, and I have to say that a big reason I'm here in week two and I didn't just give up after week one is even though there's only a dozen people listening to this, that's still a dozen people that make me go, you know what? I'm not going to be a hypocritical wuss. We sit here and talk about getting comfortable being uncomfortable, and this is really uncomfortable, but it's not undoable. It might be.
Hmm.
I might physically and mentally not be able to do this, maybe, but I don't know that yet. It is way too premature to say I can't do this at
You
this
know,
point.
we've complained about the school model as being the Austrian model and everything. And realistically, I can think of a very psychological basis for why it is bad for us humans because it's repetitive stress.
Hmm.
just like it was training you to work an assembly line. It's repetitive stress. It's one assignment after the other. This is my stack of papers I have to read just this week, right? Plus the chapters, plus the lectures, plus all of that, and write reports on all that. It's just one stress after the other. There is no break in the stress. It's
Hmm.
chronic stress. It's not acute stress. It's not running from the lion. It's there's lions everywhere I walk. They're laying there. They're not actually actively trying to eat me, but one could. One could at any given moment. So I'm going to stress at everything I see. And so the model itself is designed to give us ulcers, as Sapolsky would say, even though
Hmm.
he's in the system. But it is designed to be it's designed poorly. I'll say I'm not going to say it's on purpose. It was designed to make factory workers. That part was on purpose and soldiers, right? So, but at the same time, it is not very well designed for our genetic capabilities. So actually, I think mentorships are better. Things like
Hmm.
that. Things that spike your interest and spike your willingness to learn would probably be a better model. Do I have a system for that? No, I don't have a system for that. I do in the gym. I do that every day in the gym. The people who try to come in more often are the ones that get the worst results. I got a 63-year-old who comes in twice a week and he still benches 325. Okay, because he's got just the right amount of stress for him. But yeah, it's welcome to the system, man. Now, how do we mitigate that? That's another question.
Yeah. Well, I think, and Beck makes a great case in her book so far that it's that the varied experiences because we had if you wanted to do you were encouraged to do extracurriculars, okay, that took you gave you relief from that stress, gave you a different kind of stress, um, exercise your brain in a different way, whether that be art, theater, band, sports. These are different kinds of stresses, different kinds of outlets, different kinds of experiences, and you weren't catered to. If
Hmm.
you wanted to be able to make the team, whatever team that was, you had to be able to do the thing. It wasn't, well, you he can't do that. He's on the spectrum,
Hmm.
you
Okay,
know?
and this is a very important point because actually there is a shift maybe happening, and I approve of this shift because this is the big giant book I brought earlier, the DSM-5. This is by definition the categorical model for mental health. You hit this criteria, you hit this criteria, you hit this criteria, you hit this criteria, you're narcissistic. But you also hit this criteria, you have antisocial disorder. You hit this criteria, this criteria, this criteria, you're ADHD. You could have all of those categories. But now they're actually there's a big push for what's called the dimensional model. Whereas, oh, you showed this trait and you're kind of high in this trait and you're kind of high in this trait. So it's a kind of a bottom up approach, which I approve of as a whole. So categories are useful, but realistically, we should be saying, oh, well, you just have a tendency to be this way, or you just have a tendency to be that
Yes.
way. So we don't put you in the box. Back to your autism. Oh, you're in the spectrum of autism, so you are autistic. So I'm going to treat you like you're autistic. The best luck I've ever had in my entire life was having a mom that wanted me to be a real boy
Hmm.
because she never treated me like a heart baby because I would have been bubble wrapped. I would have been,
Yeah.
oh, well, you can't do that. You might overexert yourself. You might this or that. No, overexerting myself time again, wrestling my brother is why I'm alive today, probably.
Hmm.
I was never treated like a heart baby. Oh, why take me to my appointments and all that stuff, of course, but it wasn't this designation I had. And my other big problem with categorical models is you get locked in these boxes, and I'm going to use a physiological example to stay in my lane. You go to your PCP and your blood sugars, your glucose levels are a little high. Okay, you're pre-diabetic. Here's your medication. You know that also could be hepatitis because all things metabolic go through your liver. Your blood sugar could be high because you have hepatitis. Most diabetic treatments are harmful to your liver. So if I take that medication while I have hepatitis, what's going to happen to my liver?
Hmm.
You categorize me because of a measurement that actually misdiagnosed me and caused more harm. So that's why I like the dimensional model. And it's like kind of going back to our roots. Oh, that kid's just a little bit overactive. We're going to give him a spanking every once in a while. That's how we lived, right? Oh, no, no, he has ADHD. Here's Ritalin. Here's Ritalin. Here's oh no, no, they use why am I in the past? Starts with an A.
I don't know. I thought they still use Ritalin. I didn't know they use something else now because it was Ritalin when we were
No,
kids.
they sell it in colleges so you can stay away for your exams. Why am I blanking on this?
I don't know.
Okay, well,
But
whatever. It starts with an A.
a- and so in reading Beck's book, I realized I had done that to myself as I became more depressive, more antisocial. I so you wouldn't know it to look at me and interact with me
Adderall.
now.
Adderall.
Adderall, that's okay.
Yeah.
Um, I did speech and debate and theater in school, and I liked it a lot. I was fairly good at it. Um, and so at some point, I I said to myself at some point later in my adult life, I said, well, that was all just a facade. Well, it wasn't a facade.
It was training to be normal.
Exactly. It was, yes, I am inclined to depression and anxiety, but it was probably, in reading Beck's book, this was my realization of the weekend, it was probably all that other right hemisphere stuff that, back to the analogy I made at the beginning here, kept the demons at bay.
That's like that would be like saying I do bicep curls to have bigger biceps, but at the end of the day, I say my bigger biceps are just a facade. They don't exist. I could take a tape measure and measure them that they're there. They don't exist because I did bicep curls to get there. No, it's experience. It's that's where the
Mhm.
environment and social roles comes into the whole psychological model. It matters. Yes, most personality traits are 50% heritable. 50% leaves a lot of wiggle room.
Mhm.
A whole lot of wiggle room.
And it, I could feel myself, you know, again, back to the analogy, the shame and the whispers of the demons instead of the better angels of my nature of, well, this is just who you are. As the anxiety spikes and as I think I can't do this, I should just drop these
There you go.
classes.
In aging, approximately 45% of inter-individual variation in this index, they use the frailty index, is attributed to genetic factors. So close to 50%. There you go. There's your literature. And that was Castrita et al. There you go. 2022
And it,
to source myself.
you know, it might be, as I said, it might be that, oh, this is just who you are. Okay, well, it doesn't have to be all you are.
Well, but that's the thing about genetic variation too, is what people don't understand is it's called modulation, where your experience actually turns on and off the genetic components. So I just brought up one for what they call frailty, which frailty by their definition is your ability to handle the stressors of life. And that actually goes up as we age, which is one of the reasons why some things affect us more. And we actually develop defense mechanisms, we call them coping, as we get older. But 45% is heritable, but only 25% is directly responsible from the genes. Because the other bit is, oh, this experience happened in my life. And it's probably developmental stages too. And I wish there was more literature on this. But the first 3 years of life, say you were abused as a little toddler that you can't even remember because you were 3 years or younger, might determine a big chunk of that personality type when you're an adult.
Hmm.
And all your experience through high school, because our prefrontal cortex is still developing, is something that you can modify. And so those experiences, yeah, maybe you still don't just have the drive, the internal drive to do some things, but you still got skills. You still develop skills. You develop public speaking skills. You read off a paper out loud better than I do. That's why most of the time you read the stuff we want to talk about because that's not a thing I'm very skilled about with, but I also don't practice it. And I didn't practice it when I was younger, but you did because you were in speech and debate and all that stuff. So,
And the more you bubble wrap yourself, the less likely you are to ever find not just one, find your limits, but also find your options. So, as a physical analogy, I can't do overhead presses. I can do an overhead press, but the juice ain't worth the squeeze. It aggravates my neck too much. But I have found that so long as I'm mindful of my form, instead of an overhead press for my vertical pushes, I can do dips. I can do weighted dips. I can do dips with a hanging belt weight. Doohickey, McGigger, brain, why aren't you working? Um, and that it so long as I'm mindful of my form, it doesn't aggravate my neck. So I've discovered, oh, here's this workaround. Here's this thing I can do to get that effect, which I need for whole body health. Well, same thing mentally. Okay, I I'm not going to go do improv theater right now in my current mental state. I'm not going back to that. Maybe ever, but that doesn't mean I can't do something. That doesn't mean I can't raise my hand and answer a question in class. That doesn't
mhm.
mean I can't participate, in our class forums and post discussions online. That that doesn't mean I can't do anything. And unless I do something, I'll never figure out what my limits are.
Well, in my childhood psychopathology class, we were actually talking about this, and I brought up trying to contribute to the class, and I brought it up is that are we self-fulfilling prophecy in some of these ways with the structure we have? And
Mm-hmm.
one of them that was the discussion of that class was reading without any pathology, dyslexia or any of those things, without any pathology, the average child learns to read between 4 and 7. Some are a little bit late. We call them late bloomers at about 7, and some of them are just naturally inclined to read without any other pathology that we would prescribe to it. But there's such a push to have kids reading by
Mm-hmm.
the first and second grade that that kid that's not going to learn ish till they're about 7, how many of them are we diagnosing with dyslexia or one of those others pathologies and actually self-fulfilling that prophecy because we're treating them that way? You remember they take the kid out so they would read the test to them instead of have them read the test because they couldn't read it fast enough. That kind of stuff. How many kids are held back in their reading because we're saying, "Oh, it's not a late bloomer. That person has a problem."
And how much are you back to Beck's point about as we individually become more anxious, society becomes more anxious, which makes us more anxious. How much pressure, how much anxiety are you putting on, a 5, 6, 7-year old to push because we're so hyper concerned about, I would for my son, I was like, oh geez, what's going on? Why isn't he reading? Why isn't he reading? Well, it took him a little while to find something he wanted to read.
Another
But once
great
he
example
did,
from the categorical model is when writing this book, the DSM-5, there was actually a massive debate on narcissism, on
mm,
having it as a pathology to begin with, because society has moved in a way that most people fit it. So it is actually the new
hmm,
norm.
hmm,
And I was like, whoa, okay. From a categorical standpoint, I understand that because technically, if it's the norm, it's not a pathology, right? But from a, are we going to live in this world standpoint is maybe we need to look at the traits and actually say, oh, that's actually antisocial, okay? Because it becomes a pathology when it affects your ability to live or your ability to deal with others. If the world is shifting in this way, we should actually be figuring out how we could shift it back, not just removing it from the list. Oh, everybody's a narcissist, so it's okay. Yeah, that's going to be a pretty shitty world.
Yeah.
Oh, everybody's a school shooter. Okay, it's okay. It's like, no, 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 no. We need to figure out how to like shift it back to where nobody was. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. And this is where, you know, the the positive, as in good feedback loops come in, and where all the way back to Aristotle, man is a social animal, is that is part of um that, that same mechanism that creates that anxiety spiral uh can also help you reverse it if you have help,
mhm,
because it's a heck of a lot easier. If I was just on my own, I would have said, screw this, it's not worth it, mentally, physically, financially, just forget it. I'm gonna drop these courses. I'm not going back to school. And I could have rationalized it as, I'm not going back now. I'll work on things and I'll try again later, and later probably wouldn't have happened. But like I said, even if there's only a dozen of you out there, I know we have people listen, we have people comment, and we have talked about these things, and it is a support mechanism, you know, uh, to keep going, to keep putting one foot in front of the other, both literally and metaphorically.
mhm. Well, Dr. Lisa Feldman, I had to look up her name. No, Feldman with something else. Feldman Barrett. So, uh, she made a statement that I listened that I heard the other day that was actually it made me crack up, but it was like, oh yeah, it was people are our greatest asset when it comes to mental health, and people are our worst enemy when it comes to mental
Mm,
health. So it's that actually to me stresses the importance of it because being ostracized is so horrible for us. And that could be just the mean girl making fun of you at school or whatever. But also being that sense of belonging is so important. That's why it's so crazy and so horrible that I think it's 1 in 7 people don't have a best friend they could call at any given time.
mhm.
And that's a big deal. And you know, that and it includes family. They're so not, socially adept or pushed out that they don't have someone in their own family they can call at any given time or talk to. And that is what leads to things like we saw with some of these shooters and stuff. That's nihilism. That leads to nihilism because why? Because that's horrible. The world is painful, and your mental state can be as painful as physical pain. In fact, we see better results from people that lose their limbs than people who just have depression
Mm.
and who are just are lonely. I mean, you don't see quadriplegics offing themselves. They learn to live with it, and they actually do pretty damn well as far as their mental state. But you see people who used to be in the military and come home and don't have that sense of belonging they used to have, and they feel like they're not part of society, doing it all the time.
Yep. Ugh. Well, we only got a few minutes here before I gotta go. So speaking of, um, so positivity without being escapism. Sports.
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
It's sports bro time of now this can be a danger, because there are too many people using it as escapism rather than a momentary escape, a relaxation technique of, I like this thing. It's no, I'm going to become obsessed with this thing and ignore these other things. But we try and keep it in its proper place of, football time is not just that we like the sport, but also having a fantasy football league with friends helps it become a social interaction, not just a let me sit on the couch by myself and watch these things. So that's one of the ways we try and keep it healthy. And so we like to talk about it. And here we are recording this on the eve of the NFL season because the Cowgirls and the Eagles play tomorrow night, Thursday the 4th. Um, and I really don't
And
care, but
hopefully
I'm
the
probably going to go out and
Cowgirls
watch.
kick a lot of field goals for my fantasy team, but
Yeah. Um,
and it's not Bailey, it's Aubrey. Again,
I'm
typical Cowboys fan
quiet
living
you.
in the past.
Yeah, I should have worn my Oklahoma State shirt, I guess. Yeah, boy, you almost got me derailed there, living in the past. And I saw a billboard for this Netflix documentary, America's Team. Have you watched it?
I have not yet.
Um, which made me laugh
Well, I
because
say
yeah, that
yet,
was
like
30
I'm ever
years
gonna watch
ago.
it, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't need to give you that. I don't need to give you any more of my time than I already have, Jerry, until you prove that you can actually change and actually win. So, anywho, uh, I haven't the foggiest idea what to think of this upcoming season.
Well, so unfortunately for your Cowgirls, I think my sleeper pick is going to be Washington on the NFC side.
My gut thinking was I think that the two most likely teams to come out of the NFC are either the Eagles or Washington. I refuse to call them the Commanders. That's a stupid name.
Eagles unloaded a lot of defense over the offseason.
They did.
So,
Yeah, they did though.
I mean, we're the
So it's
beneficiaries of part of it here in Houston. So,
yeah. Um, AFC side, I think this is finally the year that they run out of gas in Kansas City. It you know
yeah.
there there's way too much other competition in the AFC, not just in the AFC, but even in the AFC West. You've got the Broncos on the rise. They seem to have kind of gotten things figured out. Theoretically, the Chargers are
Yeah, it's
are
almost
also
like Sean Payton is a good coach.
almost like,
Almost.
yeah.
Yeah.
So they might not even win their own division.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough one. That might be the toughest division in the league right now. Because even Vegas took steps forward. They're still not good, but they're good enough to be scary.
And if they can be good enough to split one with you, well,
Hmm.
that further hampers your chances to win the division because that used to be a gimme.
Hmm.
Two wins, two division wins right there against
And
Vegas.
well, Houston, we got to play all of them because we got the West as our division that the whole division has to play. So
I'm so I think it's going to be either Buffalo or Baltimore out of the AFC. Probably Baltimore just because I think they kept more pieces.
it
Um,
always depends on because you always want to know when that year that player just
yeah.
loses it is because with running backs especially, there's not a slow decline.
Running
It's
back
like
and running quarterback together.
yeah.
So both of them, you
But
could
Jackson
have
is
both of them.
younger though. Jackson's
Yeah,
younger. Yeah.
but it worst case scenario, both of them hit the wall this year, and then you're just screwed
Yeah, I doubt
if
it
you're Baltimore.
because we still got to play them. Now, Houston is interesting because I keep wanting to say it's our year. But, I mean, we definitely are going to be a top three defense. That's for sure. Uh, but if we make it to the playoffs, we have a chance because we have the toughest schedule in the NFL. We have there's only like two teams on our schedule that aren't division games that weren't playoff teams last year. So we have them all. So we
Yeah,
start the year with the Rams, which is an A team. It may be an A minus, but it's still an A team. Then Tampa Bay, which is an A team. That's one of the best defenses in the league is in Tampa Bay. So those are our first two games. And we haven't gotten into division play where you have rivalry. So even a team that's bad can still come out and play well against you the whole time. So yeah, we got Baltimore, Kansas City, Denver. Gosh, do we have the Eagles? Can't remember if we have the Eagles or not. But uh, the worst team we have is Vegas. The worst team we have is Vegas, and we just talked about how they're better this year. So it's not going to be an easy rise to the top if we do. We may only win our division games if we're not very good. So
Mhm.
it's yeah.
I'm sad to say I think the window closed on the Lions. I think they had their chance, and I don't know that
They're going to
they're
be that team that's like Miami, where they can explode at any given moment, but they can't consistently do it all year. They got Gibbs and St. Brown and Montgomery, a decent defense, but not great. Just like Miami all of those years. The thing about the Lions is if they don't get to play in a dome in the playoffs, they're gonna lose. Same with
yeah,
Miami. If they don't get the home field advantage, they're gonna lose because then they all ultimately go to Buffalo or something and play in 2 foot of snow, but they're used to living in Miami.
yeah. The most interesting team to me is the Steelers. I'm curious to see how Rodgers and Tomlin work together and if Rodgers still has anything left physically.
Yeah, well, and also they're highly dependent on a rookie running back because they just unloaded their stacked backfield. Their
Hmm.
defense is probably going to be good, but I don't think it's going to be as great as last year. Uh, and there's a
Right.
lot of drama
And
there.
that defense is heavily contingent on Watts staying on the field,
Hmm.
which you know how that goes. You have experience with trying to keep Watt on the field.
Especially after they signed the big money.
Yeah.
Yeah, so no, let's see. So a sleeper on the NFC side for me is Washington. Also, don't sleep on Tampa Bay, but I think Washington,
Hmm.
if Jaden Daniels doesn't have a sophomore slump, if he improves, I think they go to the Super Bowl. They were a spit distance from it last time.
Hmm.
I think we can be, but our schedule just sucks so bad. We're going to be so beat up by the end of the year. So the obvious pick is Baltimore. I'm trying to think. Denver could be a sleeper, but again, it's dependent on a second year quarterback. So
Yeah.
those are probably my two. If I was to put $100 down to try to win 10 times as much, I would probably put money on those. But
I have no idea.
all I
But
know is Yahoo gave me an A plus draft grade, which I get every year, and I've only won once in the last 15 years. So take that for what it's worth. But I
uh
went with 2 years ago production because I kept getting these players come up to me in the draft that were like, they were a first round pick 2 years ago, but they had a bad year last year. So I'm hoping at least two or three of them pay off.
yeah, I just was kind of winging it and going with, all right, who do I think is the best current available what right now? And so I don't know how I feel like I've got a pretty balanced fantasy team, but I don't know that it's going to be good enough to score big enough to even get into the playoffs, let alone win in the playoffs.
Well, I have 4 players that were first round picks last year that disappointed their owners. So again, was it one bad year or are
Hmm.
they done? Just
Hmm.
like we said about Baltimore. Is it time? Is the mantle is it gone or are they going to keep going?
Yeah, yeah. I I think the safe bet is Baltimore out of the AFC, and I really don't know who the safe bet is out of the NFC. Um, I guess you could say San Francisco because they're always kind of there hanging around, especially if McCaffrey stays healthy. But I feel like they've kind of lost some of their window too,
Hmm.
and it's from health, from coaching staff losses. So it's hard for me to think of them as the
Green
safe
Bay
bet.
might be a big. We'll see if their quarterback takes a step up. With Jordan
Hmm.
Love, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, because he had some injury problems last year. If he's healthy,
Yeah, he got hurt in the first
that
game.
yeah, that could be an interesting pick. Uh, Minnesota probably done. They got a rook. by all
He's essentially a
intensive.
rookie quarterback
Yeah,
because
because he
he,
didn't play last year.
yep,
Yeah.
didn't play. So looking forward to seeing it. I'm not expecting anything out of the Cowgirls, and I don't care anymore. It's
Yeah.
we'll see going forward if this Parsons trade is actually a sign that they're learning, but I doubt it. I think it was probably just that specific instance that made made Jerry get his panties in a wad. Because a lot of people are comparing it to the Herschel Walker trade,
Mm.
which is what set the '90s Cowboys up for to become a dynasty. But that was forward thinking, dispassionate forward thinking. I don't think this was. You know, I'll believe it when I see it.
I mean, it's similar to our Deshaun Watson trade too.
Yeah.
The Texans are relevant again because of that trade. So,
But along with that was the we're going to go get someone from the Patriots organization from that front office that helped build them into a dynasty. We're going to go get a head coach that we really believe in to help build a good culture,
mhm.
with the GM to put the pieces there, the coach to build up the team, build the culture, and the Parsons trade doesn't have those elements. It's just picks, and they do draft well. They have been drafting pretty well. They've had a few disappointments, but they've drafted pretty well and developed well. But then they don't really build the team.
Yeah, well, to me, I think Parsons was demanding too much money too. So there is that. He's not great against the run. He's not on the field all the time,
Mm-hmm.
and he wanted to be one of the highest paid guys. And
And he is now the highest paid non-quarterback ever.
yep.
Because they part of the deal was Green Bay got him to sign an extension or sign the extension that he was wanting. But as some people around the local people here have said, this is a strange place. If which I don't believe, if this is Dallas finally learning a lesson and drawing a line in the sand to say we're going to stop overpaying people, this is a strange place to draw the line in the sand, especially after you paid Dak so much freaking money
Hmm.
and still are. Strange place to draw a line in the sand. But you know what? Maybe they can learn. Maybe the old dog can learn some new tricks or go back to old tricks that he used to know. Maybe. We'll
Well,
see.
hoping for the hometown team. I think they're going to be good, but yeah, those my picks are elsewhere this year.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty heavily schedule dependent in the NFL because of the 17 game season and how competitive it is, how much the NFL has pushed for parity to make it
Now,
interesting that way.
I think we have enough depth to handle injury this year. We didn't last year, but I think we do this year. So I think we'll still be good all year. We'll make the playoffs. That's a no-brainer, especially in our division. But it's just such a tough schedule getting there. We're going to be beat up,
Mm-hmm.
and we still got to get past Baltimore. We can't get that monkey off our back. So
Yeah. Well, first weekend of games, I think we'll learn quite a bit. Um, but and then maybe we'll reassess going forward. But right now, I think the NFC is more or less wide open, and I think the AFC there's a number of teams that have been knocking on the door the past couple of years that I think they've got a real shot.
mhm.
Because I think Kansas City's window is closed.
All right, well, we'll call it there, and we will see y'all Saturday for Wheel of Time Talk.
All right.